Like anybody. All right, awesome. Okay, so we were working this question. One moment, guys. So guys, there's actually something making noise outside. Are you guys hearing it? Is it very loud? I'm not sure how loud it is. Yes, I'm hearing you. Oh, you're hearing it, but it's not loud. I'm not sure if they're going to. Okay, I feel like it's getting closer. One moment, guys. Okay, I think we might can get a little bit before they come up around this side. All right, so we had done this and we found that up the top here, we found that this was 18. Right, if I'm supposed to take out, okay, never mind, it's getting louder. Okay, we're going down the road now. Okay, so we have this triangle. So they want the length of ST. Right, so we have T, we have S, we have R, right? And they want the length of ST, which is right here. Right, we also know that here is 150. So what I did was just to take out the triangle that is on the right hand side. All right, that's what I did. Okay, so today I want to teach you something called the sine rule. Right, on Wednesday we'll do the cosine rule, right? But it's called the sine rule. And the idea is that to find a missing side, right? It's A over sine A is equal to B over sine B. However, if it's to find a missing angle, you put the sine on top. Right? So it just makes your life a little easier. So what do I mean by this? I'll give you 2 examples. Right, so suppose we need to find, so let's put this as RTS. I'm just making up something else. Right, this is a teaching moment. So let us say you need to find RT, which is a side. And let us say you know this angle. You know this angle. And you know that side. right? So the idea is that you get to use the sine rule, right? You get to use the sine rule if you know the angle across from a particular side. So let's just say this is 100. Let's say this is 23. Let's say this is 35. And you were asked to find RT. Right? I'm saying that it is the side because it's the missing side, right? It's the side over sine 35. And then it would be 100 over sine 23. Right? So you want to imagine, so the A just means the side, right? So this is the side. This is the angle. This is the side. This is the angle. Right, so try to put it in a calculator. So we're just doing a bit of learning. Right, so 100 divided by sine 23. Right, so you should have RT over sine 35. Right, is equal to 255. Somebody says, well, if you mix up what angle to use, then you're going to get it wrong. But it's always the angle across from the side, right? We always use angles across from the side. Then the 35, when you take it across, you will multiply. Yeah, you would get all of that decimal, but I mean, you could leave like 2 or 3 decimal places. You wouldn't have to write out all of it. I don't really have the space, but if you want to write out all of it, that's completely fine. All right, so basically I'm getting that RT is 146.8. So anywhere along that should be good. So I'm saying that what if you get a triangle, right? And the sine rule is usually used for non-right angled triangles. Right, so for what we were doing before, we spoke about, for example, Pythagoras' theorem and using the trig ratios. But those are really for right angle triangles. So a cue or like a clue for you to know that you should be using the sine or cosine rule is when you have a triangle and there's no right angle in it. All right, so take this off and then we're going to try to do it with the question on the right side. All right, but for those who want to work ahead, your clue is to use, so you have the 22, you're trying to find ST, all right, but you know the 150 and we found the angle up here. All right, because we found that this angle was it 8 or 18? 18. All right, so for those who are finished, you can actually go ahead and try to apply it to the question. I know some persons are probably taking off notes. Right, guys, and the way to not mess it up is that you have to practice, right? You have to do a lot of practice. Again, go through the videos that are in the folder. All right, so go ahead and try it. Okay, so going back, if you could round up for the two, round up how you want to round up. Yeah, so the sine rule says that if you have two sides, two angles, right, and the sides have to be across from the angle, right, you can go ahead and use it to find whether it's a missing side or a missing angle. So for this, right, I'm saying that the 23 and the 100 are across from each other. And then the 35 is across from what we're looking for. Again, this is just a bonus question. This is not the question that is on the paper. All right, this is just a bonus example. All right, so I'm saying that you put the side over the sine of the angle. And then you put the side over the sine of the angle. Right, so watch me do it for this one. Right, so we have ST. For the person who asked me to do it, look at this. So what I realized is that I want ST. I have the angle across from ST. So I said, okay, that could work. Because I have this side and I know the angle across from it. Right, so it is what? It is the side over the sine of the angle is equal to the side over the sine of the angle. So the person was asking me to repeat it. Are you seeing how I set up that first one? Well, this one, are you seeing where I have the numbers where I have them? Okay. So then we work it out. So we say ST over sine 22. All right, so 150 divided by sine 18 is going to give us 485.441. Zero kind of 41. Right, or usually sometimes I'll keep 3 to 4 decimal places to be honest. So I'll put 4102. All right, then the sine 22 is divided. So when I take it across, I multiply. So when I times that by sine 22, all right, you should be getting 181.84, anywhere in that region, but 181 point something. For sure, that's what everybody should be getting. Yeah, so somebody's asking, why did I choose sine 18 and not sine 140? All right, so let me maybe draw it over here. Okay, so I think everybody is settled on the fact that we want ST So we chose the angle across from it. But look at this, guys. If I use the 140, I don't know the side across from it. So at all times, you only want one unknown. So I already don't know what this is. So whichever other sides I'm going to choose, I need to know the side and the angle. So if I choose the 140, I don't know the side across from it. So the 140 is not useful because we don't know the side across from it. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. That's fine, guys. Ask all the questions. Okay, that sounds like I kind of understand. What part are you not understanding? So I'm saying that at all times, because it's A over the sine of the angle, B over the sine of the angle. So I'm saying that at all times, right? Whatever you're using as the other sine and the other angle, you have to know those. Yeah, if you need more practice, as I said, just go into the videos. Oh, you've never seen it before. Okay, understand. So what I'll do is, because today I already think there's a lot of them in this one. I think there's another question, but not a lot. So what I can do is on Wednesday, we can do some more sine and cosine rule. But again, maybe what you could do is go into the thing before. I'll tell you what videos exactly. If you don't really want to search through all of them, I'll tell you which one you can start from. Somebody's asking, how did I get the 485? Right? How I got that? I put it in the calculator. So I put 150 divided by, and then I press sine 18. So if when you do that, that's not what you get in your calculator, it's probably not in the right mode. So let me know. Everybody else, you can go ahead and try to find the height of the tower, right? And you use the trig ratio. Okay, awesome. Right, so now FT is a part of the right angle triangle. So you know you want to be thinking back to trig ratios. All right, so let's look at what we have. So we have 40. We now have 181.84. And we want FT. So label your sides, hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent, decide what ratio you want to use, and find FT. So I'll give you guys 2 minutes to think about it, and then we'll do it together. Right, so this is the hypotenuse. Right, that leaves two sides. The one closest is the adjacent. The one across is the opposite. Right, so what do we have? So we have to use FT because that's what we need. right? But then we also have the hypotenuse. So going back to my SOHCAHTOA, if I have the opposite and the hypotenuse, I am going to use sine. So we're gonna have that sine 40 is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So sine 40 is equal to ft over 181.84. And the 181.84, which is divided, when we take it across, we multiply. Right, so we should be getting 116.8 something or 116.9. Anywhere along that is good to go. All right, so I'll take questions from those persons who have. For the others, you can go ahead and start to look at this one. But if there are any questions about the previous one, talk to me. No questions? Yeah, go over.
Good night, Miss. I came in late. Could you update me on what you're doing?
Well, we're doing a question, but you can just pick up from the one that's on the right.
All right.
Yeah, no problem. For the person from before, or did you label your triangle with the hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent like I did? So, mean, are you convinced that you should use sine? Okay, so it's the sine, so the opposite is ft. Okay, perfect for that person who reset the calculator. Right, so this is the opposite. This is the hypotenuse. All right, so that which is divided, when I take it across, I multiply. And then you simply just put all of this into the calculator. That's okay for the person who asked me to go over? Yeah, 116.9, yeah, that's good. All right, so we're moving on to May 2014. Right, so it's in the diagram below. Let me make it a little bigger. Right, not down to scale, show the position of two ships. Right, so we have FT. Right, so we see two ships at P and Q. Right, so we have FT, which is the vertical face of the cliff. Then it says P and Q are 118 meters apart, right? They tell us that FT is 80, right? And they tell us that this angle is 40. So they want, the first one is pretty straightforward, that's why it's just one mark, right? They want the angle of elevation of T from P. So remember I said whatever comes after the from, that's your starting point, right? So T from P is saying that the angle at P, right? So we want the angle at P that is going from the horizontal. Let me draw this a little more straight. Yeah. Okay. So that. Right, so the angle of elevation of T from P is just this angle here in blue, the 40. Because remember, I said the angle of elevation is always from the horizontal. Right, so if you have your horizontal here, right, it's from the horizontal up or from the horizontal up. So I'm saying that's why it was only one mark, right? So it's just 40 degrees. It was already on it. They just did not tell you that it was the angle of elevation, right? But based on what the definition of the angle of elevation is, we should have been able to pick up that. Oh, so from P, that means they're asking me for the angle that is right at the P going up to the T, right? So it's the angle at P going from the horizontal up to T, right? That's really what they're, if we had to break it down, that's what it's saying. Right, so there was no working out for this question. It was just a matter of, do you understand the concept of an angle of elevation? Is everybody seeing that it is 40? Is there anybody not seeing, anybody not able to see that the angle of elevation of T from P is 40? Is everybody good to go with it being 40? Is it absolutely clear? Again, that was a giveaway question. All right, that was a giveaway question. You guys can also do the length of FP. That one is straightforward. So this one wasn't so bad. If there's anybody not seeing the 40 for question one, let me know. Right, they want the length of FP. Now I am looking at all times. I just want to focus on one of the triangles, right? That's okay. Let's go with all right. So this is 80. And they're asking me for FP, which is here. So you're supposed to use one of the trig ratios. So label it hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent, and decide which one you're using. Okay, so the only thing that should be giving us problem today is like when we did the one that's a sine rule, but everything else are principles that we've done before. All right, so go ahead. So try to figure out which trig ratio you're going to use and find FP. So guys, another thing you guys should work on as we are getting closer to the exam, make sure that you're working on your speed, right? So that you're in the exam and you're not able to finish a particular question, try to put as much as possible for each question. Right, so even if you don't get to the end of a question, but you're able to write a little bit for each, that's good. All right, but you don't want to stay too long on any particular question. So that is the hypotenuse. And this has to be the opposite. This is the adjacent. We're looking for FP, so we definitely want the adjacent. And the next side that we know is the opposite. Yep, that is correct. Yeah, so you would say that tan 40 is the opposite over the adjacent. So tan 40 is 80 over FP. The FP, which is divided when we take it across, we multiply. Right? And then the tan 40, which was multiplied, when you take it across, you divide. Right, so your answer should be 95.3, right, or 95 point something, any of that is fine. And you put 2 meters. All right, so go ahead. If there are any questions, guys, remember that's what I'm here for. So the only reason I keep on going is because those persons who have asked me questions, I have addressed them. So if you don't ask me your questions, I have to assume it's because you're okay. Right? Remember that I can't read minds, so whatever you're uncomfortable with, you can just send it in the message. While I wait to change the page, those persons who are probably finished. Okay, no problem. That's very good. And with more practice, you'll continue to get it. All right, so remember this is 118. Let me put the P here. Right, and we just found that this is 95.3. So they're asking for the angle of elevation of T from Q. So remember that that is saying the angle at Q that goes up to T. So you can still use the trig ratios. It's just that you are going to instead, right, be trying to find an angle. And you can put this all together to get one length. So I'm gonna go just giving some persons a hint in case they're ahead of you guys, at least they can do something. For the others, are there any other questions? Okay. So I'm looking at the big triangle. Right, as I said, this is 80, 95.3, 118. All right. And the angle of elevation of T from Q means the angle at Q that goes from the horizontal up to T, right? I want you to get familiar with the language, right? So they're asking for this angle. So I'm saying that all of this, right? If I add the 95 plus the 118, I get 213.3. All right, so if I had to redraw my triangle, instead what I have is 213.3. I'm trying to find that angle, and this is 80. So again, label it hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent, and try to find the angle. All right, and if those of you who are here from the first trig session, so remember I had said that whenever we're finding angles, you'll always end up using the inverse function. Yeah, so I'll go through why TPQ couldn't be used shortly, because we don't have enough information. But do this first, and then I'll tell you why you couldn't use that. Well, very good question. So that's the hypotenuse. That's the opposite. That's the adjacent. Okay, one person was able to get it. Anybody else trying? Anybody else remembers how to find the angle? All right, so as a hint, we're using the opposite and the adjacent is supposed to have that tan x is equal to the opposite. Yeah, I'm just kind of starting you off, right? So you see if you know what to do with it. All right, so we have tan x is equal to 80 over 213.3. And I said to us that in order to get rid of the tan, right, you have to tan inverse the opposite side, right? So whenever you're finding the angle, right, so always use inverse trig functions when finding angles. All right, and how do you put that in on your calculator? Well, I have a Casio, I'm not sure about the others, right? But I would press shift, right? And then tan, right? And when you press this, it activates. You're gonna see tan -1 come up on the screen. Then I would put a bracket, 80 divided by 213.3. Again, guys, practice using calculators from now. Do not try to go into the exam and figure it out at that point. All right, so 20.56 or 20.6, any of those is acceptable, and because it's the angle you put, right? Degrees, very good, good job. All right, so just as a bonus, again, for those who weren't here, so if you have sine x, right, is equal to 0.5. If you wanted to find x, you get rid of the sine and you find sine inverse of a half. All right, and you should get 30. If you do cos x equals 0.5, right, you should have x is equal to cos inverse 0.5, which should give us 60. So just ensure that you know how to use the inverse function on your specific calculator. Okay, so while I wait on the others to get there, right, we can start to look at the next one. Right, if there are any questions. So the thing is, guys, again, those persons who are answering me, they're getting it correct. Right, which is showing me that they're understanding. For those persons who are not answering or not necessarily saying that you have a problem, I cannot help unless you signal to me that, Miss, I'm not understanding. Right, I cannot stress it enough. From you guys have come, I have not embarrassed anybody. I have not tried to put anybody down. It does not matter to me if it's something as simple as a fraction and you just don't know how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, you just don't know how to do it. There's no need for me to embarrass you and say, how come you don't know that or you should know that. If you don't know it at this point, you just don't know it. Right? So don't sit down there and continue to not know it. Right? You finally have a teacher that wants you to know it. Right? To ensure that you are making use of that. I do understand that there may be some trauma from just, being turned on by teachers or some teachers being mean. I have heard stories, but you have to trust that this experience will be different. Guys, do not skip parents or some of you who do come here like you're paying for yourself. Just don't waste the opportunity. Okay, so somebody's asking me, how does 20.56 become 20.6? So basically what I did is round to one decimal place. Right, so I counted one place after the decimal point. Then I looked to the right because it was 5 or more. I rounded up. All right, so it became 20.6. See that? Okay, no problem. Okay, so this next one is a little bit tricky in my opinion. So I would want to go through it with you. All right, so it's January 2019. All right. So we have B, we have T, S1, and S2. So it says there's a person at the top of a lighthouse. All right, so the person is probably up here. All right, and I see two ships. Right, approaching the coast. It says the angles of depression. Right. So for this one, they did make a mistake. They meant to say S2 and then S1. But I mean, for those persons who were during that year, they would have gotten the corrections actually in the exam from the invigilators. Right. So the first thing is that the 110 meters apart, that was straightforward. Now remember I said that the angle of depression is always from the horizontal down. So the common mistake is that some persons are going to put the angles in the inside, cannot be. The angle of depression is always from the horizontal down. Right, so clearly there are two angles right? And the smaller one would have to be the 12, and the bigger one be 20. So the mistake they made, just in case some persons aren't seeing it, so it says the angle of depression, right, are 12 and 20 respectively. But if we were following it as is, it would mean that this is for S1 and this is for S2. But I'm saying that's not true. Right? If you notice, there's a longer distance to go from the horizontal to S1. And there's a shorter distance to go from the horizontal to S2. So I'm just saying that's the mistake. So technically it's not respectively. Is everybody seeing the mistake that was on the paper? Again, you would have gotten this correction if you were in that exam paper. Right? The invigilator would have said it to you. But I'm saying just in terms of reasoning, I hope you guys are able to see it. Okay, awesome. Right, so it says complete the diagram inserting the angles of depression and the distance between the two ships. So that would have been that first part. So that's how we completed the diagram. All right, so complete the diagram by putting them in. And then we're going to do the second part. All right. So for the second part, part A. So guys, whenever they give us angles of depression, and we spoke about this, right? So for the angles of depression, they're always equal to the angle of elevation, right? So angles right? And the reason for that right, is that whereas this is the angle of elevation, this is the angle of depression. Right, and at the same time, right, so these are always the horizontals. Right, so every angle of depression has an angle of elevation. So the idea is that working with the angle of depression up there is not really helping anybody. All right, so what do I mean by that? So if we already found that here was 12, well then it means that if I can draw, right, the Z, it means I'm able to tell that here is also 12. Then at the same time, if here is 20, yeah, alternate angles, yes. Right, so your Z angles, yes, that is correct. Right, so I'm saying this is because of alternate angles. Right. Is everybody seeing how those two alternate angles happen to come inside? Because we're dealing with the triangle. So it being on the outside, the angle of depression, usually we want to draw the Z angle, because if the angle is outside of the triangle, that doesn't help us. So even though they've given us the angle of depression, we usually transfer it into an angle of elevation so that it can actually help us. So alternate angles, also called Z or Z angles, right? They're equal to each other. And it says that if you have two parallel lines, right? And then there's a line going through it, right? That you can draw the letter Z or Z, whichever one you say, right? And those angles that I have there are always going to be equal to each other. Right, so in general, right, if you have that, right, so if you draw the letter Z, I'm saying this angle is equal to that angle. That's what the rule says in general. Right, so we're just applying it to trigonometry, but in general, it looks like what I have below. All right, so the first one I'm saying, all right, so let's look at this being to the S2. All right, remember, so to S2, we said that this was 12. So I'm saying that if we're just saying that if that is 12, right, then it means this also has to be 12. Right, then at the same time, hi guys, so these are very visual topics. So even though they have the two triangles together, you have to still be able to see them separately. Right, so we said that the angle of depression for this one was 20. Right, so if there is 20, right, it means that at S1 also has to be 20. So that's me splitting it apart, if that helps you to see it better. Right, so that's what I've done so far. Can I get some yeses? Is everybody with me? Are you guys seeing it better now that we've separated the triangles? Okay, awesome. Okay, so since we have that, I do want to focus on something. Maybe I should put it back. All right, guys, so if this whole thing, so everybody look to the right side. Right, so if the whole thing is 20, and this portion out of it is 12, what is that little piece right there? Right, if the full thing is 20, we know that a piece of it is 12. Is everybody able to see that that portion at the top there is 8?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So what I'm looking at, all right, so I'm saying that there's 8 up here, there's 12 here, right? Remember, we also know that here is 110. Oh, for the person who had asked me the last one about why we didn't use the other triangle, I didn't forget it. Here, we'll go back to it. Right, so we're looking at this. Why am I looking at this? Because they have asked me the distance TS2. Right, but TS2 is looking like this outer portion right here. So now once we start to move to the non-right angle triangle, you know you want to be thinking sine or cosine rule, but I didn't do any cosine rule today, so only sine rule. So in your case, based on everything I've taught, right, since it's not this triangle, which is the right angle triangle, we're in the non-right angle triangle, which is on the right. So I'm saying immediately you should be thinking, oh, sine rule. But you have to do a check to say, okay, well, let me see if I have everything I need. All right, well, I have the 8 and I have the 120. But since I want to find TS2, I need to figure out what this answer is. Okay, you have to be paying attention, you have to be following. Right, so the questions aren't hard, but because there's so much happening, it does take a bit of focus. So what we also want to remember is that angles on a straight line sum to 180 degrees. Right, very good. All right, so we want to remember, so to find, we'll go to the next page. So I'll come back to it. And I'm gonna take it up. Yeah, so I'll put it over this side. All right, so to find angle T, S1, S2, right? We use angles on a straight line, sum to 180 degrees. So essentially what I have is that straight line, this part is 20, and I want to find this piece. Right, so this is right there at the S1. So we say 180 is the 20, right, plus the angle. Right, so 180 minus 20 is equal to what we're looking for, which is 160. All right, so this is 160. All right, so now I have everything to do the sine rule. All right, so your hint after this is, now that you've filled in the 160, go ahead and use the sine rule to find TS2. All right, so I want to give you guys a chance. Remember that to use the sine rule. You definitely need to know the side and the angle for one of them. And then for the next one, if you're looking for the side, you have to know the angle. Right, so since I want TS2, I definitely need to know the angle across from it. So remember, you guys start off, those persons who are trying, go ahead and try to use the sine rule. All right, so you should have TS2 over sine 160 is equal to 110. Right, over sine 8. That's what you should have. Right, so remember it's always the side over the sine of the angle is equal to the other side over the sine of that angle. All right, so we have TS2 over sine 160. All right, so 110 divided by sine 8 is 790.3826. The sine 160, when you take it across, all right, We will multiply. All right, so you should be getting 270.3. Right? However, a very important part of the question, it said to the nearest meter, right? And what this means is no decimals, right? So you have your 270.3, you draw your line at the decimal point. If it's 5 or more, you would round up, but since it is not, you simply put 270. Right, so for the person who put the 270.3, you would have gotten like, they probably still give you the marks. All right, and probably take off something like a quarter or something very, very small. And if they're very, very nice that day, they'll probably just give you all of it. Yeah, but just watch out for stuff like that. Okay, so while I explain to persons who may not be understanding, all right, let me just give you guys a hint for the last part. All right, so we just found out this is 270 and this is 12. So if you look at the big triangle, right, to find TV, you can literally use the big triangle, you know the hypotenuse, and you want VT. So you can go ahead and try that. But if there are any questions about the 270, please let me know. I have no problem re-explaining or answering any questions. All right. So for the next one. All right, 270. This is 12. All right, so this is the hypotenuse. This is the opposite. This is the adjacent. All right, so this is the hypotenuse. And what do we want? We want the opposite. So we're going to use sine. So we say that sine 12 is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So sine 12 is TB over 270. And the 270, which is divided Then take it across. One moment, guys. Why not? All right, we multiply. All right, so you're gonna get 56.13, however they said to the nearest meter. So again, we take the 56.1. Yeah, even if it's 1, 3, whatever you decide, but that's not the final answer, right? Because they said to the nearest meter. So they want no decimal. So you look to the right, it's not 5 or more. So you simply leave it as 56. Yeah, so it would just be 56. No decimal. So when they say to the nearest meter, they mean no decimal. They said nearest kilometer, nearest whole number, no decimal. All right, guys, so we're gonna stop there on linear 2 questions. Yeah, so there's 2 questions left on this. I'll probably add 2 more just so that you guys can get in the sine rule and the cosine rules. I'll look for 2 questions that use those rules specifically and decide if I'll even replace them with one of these. We'll see about it. No, I think I want to do those 2 questions. So we'll do those 2 and then maybe the sine and cosine rule. And yeah, guys, so just ensure that you're practicing. Again, there is the videos in the folder. Please make use of them. Trigonometry is not one of those things that will just come easily. So please ensure that you're doing your part. I may not have the time to teach you in full, but I have made all of the resources available to you. So it's just for you to put in the work, right? And in those videos, my class videos, trust me, I go through it very slow, very in-depth, all of that. So that's the perfect place to learn it. Yeah, if you guys are finished writing, if you have no further questions, you're free to go. For the person who had asked me, how do you know to use the other triangle? We can go back to that after. Somebody asked me about linear programming. I don't think from this year. I probably have to send you a marathon video from like last year. But I could look, just send me a WhatsApp so that I can remember. Yeah. All right, so for those persons who are finished, that's going to be it for today. So you are free to go if you're finished asking your questions and finish writing. Same to you. Have a great night. Bye. Same to you.